good for savers, but not so much for borrowers. So that's people with credit cards, households with mortgages, businesses with business loans. But let's not forget, that is going to add to the challenges for households and businesses. As you mentioned, the cost of living crisis is really quite severe. Inflation is running above 8%, and interest rate hikes are only going to add to the challenges for households and businesses. But the ECB has to do this. You mentioned the inflation rate of being above 8%, and what they're worried about is inflation becoming entrenched at that level. So the ECB has to move. They have to make these moves now with interest rates, but it is going to add more pressure to those household budgets and make a more challenging environment for businesses as well.
Right, so, the average consumer might not like this decision very much in principle, but as you mentioned, taking a look at the rates of inflation, they're also worrying. So do you think this current move from the ECB will be enough to cool things down?
No, and I think we should all be prepared for a number of rate hikes. There'll probably be another one this year, maybe in September, and then also a few more next year as well. So ECB rates could go anywhere between 1.5 and 2%. So they need to do more than just one. One's not going to be enough. Inflation is stubbornly high. It's been impacted by the things like supply chain issues that we've been discussing for a couple of years, the war in Ukraine, as you just discussed, impacting food and energy prices. The ECB can't influence all of those things, but they need to slow down some spending. There's going to be more than this interest rate increase coming up, because they're going to need to do a fair bit more over the next 12 months to slow down inflation.
And the other thing, John, the situation we're looking at is also when it comes to growth. I mean, the ECB's also downgraded its growth forecasts in light of all those factors that you just mentioned there, including the war in Ukraine. But I'm just wondering, across the Eurozone, how sluggish do you think things will be?
This is the key question and the key challenge. Absolutely, this is the biggest difficulty facing the ECB. Even before these interest rate increases, and I said as I mentioned, there's likely to be a few, the risk of recession in Europe is already high. So the ECB has the challenge. It is necessary to increase interest rates, but it wants to do so in a way that doesn't tip the region into recession. It's going to be extremely, extremely difficult to do that because of so many vulnerabilities in the European economy right now, having built up over the last couple of years and from the war in Ukraine. So the ECB has a very, very, very fine line to walk, and it's going to be a really difficult challenge not to tip the region into recession.